with us, please. Where's your contact lens case?
It's in my wash bag. Why you want it?
We need to lock down this landing. Put him in a secure room. Check every part of this cell.
In 2007, traces of the deadly poison ricin were found in a cell belonging to Egyptian national S01E06. Suddenly, what had been an investigation into extortion and burglary became a major criminal case that would expose the dark world of contract killing on the internet.
2 male marks in Ireland ASAP. Make it look like an accident. Then possibly a third, older, within 24 hours. Preferred a suicide.
Over 5% of Irish homicides are contract killings, and that figure is rising year on year. You've got one of the highest rates of gangland assassination in the developed world. What does that say of this country? To help me explore why Ireland has become a mecca for assassins, I'll be joined by forensic criminologist David Wilson. As a former prison governor and an academic, he has over 30 years' experience of the criminal underworld. Together we have identified 4 types of assassins operating in these islands. Novices, journeymen, dilettantes, and masters. Each has a unique set of characteristics and traits. In this series, we're going to try and delve into the mindset of the hitman and try and explain why Ireland has become one of the contract-killing centres of the planet. Hitmen generally aren't the preserve of rural Irish towns, and the gangland wars that plague Dublin haven't touched anybody around here. And yet Ennis became the centre of a contract-killing case worthy of a Hollywood thriller. It all began in August 2006 when a woman calling herself Lying Eyes 98 approached a man she believed was a professional hitman going by the alias Tony Luciano. Lying Eyes 98 was the online persona of Sharon Collins, a woman who to all intents and purposes appeared to be a doting mother and devoted homemaker. Hi David, I'm on the way to delve into Sharon Collins' background to get a sense of her motivation, and we'll track what we can and what we know of S01E too.
What's really interesting about this case is that rarely do we get to know anything about the contractor. And so we've got an opportunity here to really find out what might motivate the contractor of a hit as much as the motivation of the hitman himself.
And David, uniquely we've got the 3 points of this kind of criminal triangle. We've got the person who commissioned the crime, we've got the target, and we've got the assassin.
Yeah.
And that's a rare event in contract killing.
Yeah.
As you can imagine, I am extremely nervous about sending this message. And even talking on the phone. There are actually 3. 2 of them would probably be together in Ireland. And the third would be in Spain. I don't want to give you the names of the people involved just yet.
Once you start going down this road, there's no turning back.
Hello. Well, we discuss about your situation. And we assume that these people is your 2 stepsons and your husband. We can do the 2 male first, and after cool off, we can do the 3rd one.
Collins believed she was talking to a professional hitman, but Tony Luciano and his website was the figment of the imagination of Assam Eid, a Las Vegas-based extortionist and a man who was already on the radar of the FBI. I've arranged to speak to FBI agent Ingrid Sotelo, who was tracking Eid in the spring of 2006. What did you think about Assam Eid's attempt to extort money with this site, Hitman for Hire?
I hadn't had that before. Somebody's advertising their services on their own website, and not hidden behind too many layers either.
But do you think he really thought he could make his millions by being real hitman for hire straight out of the Hollywood movies?
I don't know how rich he thought he was going to get. I mean, he had a regular job. He worked at the Bellagio Hotel as a poker dealer. He'd worked in that gambling industry for years, and before that he'd been a travel agent, so he always worked. I don't know how he came up with this idea, because he had to hire people to even do the website for him. So maybe he didn't understand how traceable everything on the internet really is.
Our price per person is $50,000 US. But because 3 birds in 1 stone, it will be $90,000. Before we start, we have to have a deposit of $45,000.
Regarding payment, the price you quoted seems very fair. And I would gladly pay it, but I will have to give some thought on how to come up with the deposit. I don't have any assets of my own. I will have to borrow it.
You can send $15,000 by Wednesday, and after we arrive, we can have the $30,000, which is the balance of the deposit, and the rest of the money, which is $45,000, no later than 72 hours after the job done.
Hey, Mark. Taxi.
Martin, you're a local taxi driver in Ennis. What was your awareness of the Collins family?
Sharon Collins came from a family, a very, very well-respected family. Both her father and her mother were 2 lovely people. And all the relations and all the people that connected with her were nice, honest, good people.
And what about Sharon Collins in particular? What can you tell me about her?
Her parents just worked in the cinema, and she worked in the cinema with him, and she was a lovely, lively girl. She didn't do much socialising in the town. I mean, you wouldn't see her out around the town at night. Kept to herself. And didn't do, you know, wild things. Most boys and girls do, but she didn't know.
People keep describing her as a local beauty. Was she someone who turned heads?
Well, she was a very attractive woman, like, you know, she carried herself very well. And was very, 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 yes, very attractive woman. Very attractive girl growing up.
Even before Sharon Collins made contact with Assam Eid, he already had been contracted to kill a woman in Los Angeles. But instead of carrying out that hit, he tried to extort money from the intended victim.
He walked in with Teresa Engel, who he called his wife, and he handed her a folder. And in that folder was an email from Marissa Mark. And the victim in our case recognized that name right away as being her boyfriend's former girlfriend. And the email said something to the effect of, I promise you $17,000, shoot her in the head. And he said, I really don't want to kill you, though. You remind me of my daughter. I'll actually let you buy the contract back from Marissa. I'll kill her for you if you'd like that.
It's extraordinary that SME didn't think the victims of his extortions would not simply go to the police and seek protection.
I mean, I have recorded telephone calls that the victim made in my presence to Assam Eid and to Teresa Engel, where they made threats. You know, at one point, the victim's boyfriend said, we don't have that kind of money to pay you. And Teresa Engel responded, well, what are you going to say when your girlfriend's buried on Tuesday?
these are very dark and menacing words from Eid and Teresa Ingle.
You know, we kept making calls to them to try to make an arrangement, at least so they would think that she was going to pay, so they would show up in person and we could take the case down, really. And all of a sudden he got very generous. He extended the deadline, you can have till 2 or 3 weeks in advance. I thought, well, that's odd. Usually when somebody sees money at the end of the road, they get greedier and they're can't wait to make a face-to-face meeting. He was doing that because he had a better offer in Ireland.
My husband is in Spain and lives on the top floor of a tall building while he's there. If he were to hear that his son's had a fatal accident, he might suddenly feel suicidal and just jump off the building. Is this too far-fetched, do you think?
Journalist Emer Connolly has written extensively on the Lying Eyes case. Who was Sharon Collins and what was her background?
Sharon Collins was a mother of two who had grown up in Ennis in County Clare, and she had been married to a man called Noel Collins, and they had 2 sons, and she became separated from Noel. And over the years she had worked in a number of different jobs, and then she met up with PJ Howard. PJ at the height of the boom was worth about 60 million, and there was a feeling that she had, I suppose, come from nothing, and then she got into this life where it was all parties and it was all labels and it was all trips overseas, and suddenly she really got to enjoy this, and again a huge change in her life.
Although Collins was living a glamorous life with PJ Howard, dividing her time between their homes in Ireland and Spain, what she really craved was a share of PJ's wealth. What were the changes going on in her life that led her to want to murder PJ Howard and his 2 sons?
Well, it appears what happened was Sharon Collins realised that PJ Howard wasn't going to marry her, and what it meant then was that PJ's wealth would go to his sons Robert and Niall in the event that he would die, and PJ had been in poor health over the years, so he made it quite clear to her that they were very much an item and they lived together, and she was very much part of the family unit, but he was not going to marry her. So then she went online and she obtained a marriage cert.
Collins believed the proxy wedding certificate gave her legal grounds to claim she was Howard's wife. But she couldn't be sure. To her mind, it was safer to take out the other potential claimants, his sons Robert and Niall.
Because she had grown up in quite a modest upbringing, suddenly she could see that the money was there, and it wasn't just hundreds or thousands, it was millions, and she felt that that's not fair. I'm sticking with PJ, I'm looking after his medication, I'm working in his business, and she just became the greed really got out of control, where she felt that I want everything.
I know it must seem terrible of me, but my back's to the wall and I don't have much choice. I would prefer if it was just my husband, but because of the way he's arranged his affairs, it would be way too complicated if his sons were still around, and I'd still be in much the same situation as I am now.
We are planning August 18 or 19, and we have to have picture of 2 guys and your husband too. But sorry, we have to have the deposit before we proceed.
Sorry for taking so long getting back to you, Tony. I'm not trying to be difficult about the money. If you can get me out of the unbearable situation I am in, and I don't get into trouble for it, then it's money well spent as far as I'm concerned.
The email correspondence between Sharon Collins and the man she thinks is called Tony Luciano, there are a number of criminological phenomena going on here that we should acknowledge. The first is the sense of what's called the online disinhibition effect. In other words, people will behave online in the privacy of their study by a computer screen in ways they'd never dream of behaving in reality. And so it's this relationship between fantasy and reality that interests me. And when I'm thinking about fantasy, we've got Lying Eyes, we've got Tony Luciano, we've got this sense of a folie à deux. The other striking criminological phenomena that I see in this email exchange is something called techniques of neutralization. So in other words, what Sharon Collins does is she tries to give herself permission to do what it is that she wants Tony Luciano to do, which is to kill her husband. There's one particular email that reveals these techniques of neutralization. Let me read it out. My husband wants to control every moment of my life and has a dreadful temper. The main reason I'm doing this is because he's continually trying to force me to go out and pick up a stranger for sex. He finds the idea of it exciting and insists I must do it.
I must do it
or I'm out.
Well, no way, I will not do it. The mother of my boys is not a slut.
Well, of course, she might not be a slut, but she is trying to commission someone to kill her husband and her two stepsons. So, what's interesting to me
investigated what the emails from Lying Eyes 98 say about Colin's state of mind at the time.
I think what's not really been discussed before with Sharon Collins is an element of boredom. What starts off in the emails as very business-like, very clinical, it actually turns into something from the movies. You know, she's being very theatrical, she's playing out a fantasy.
You've read their email exchanges. Mm-hmm. Do you think there's a sense that they were egging each other on?
Absolutely. Again, when you look at it in terms of a timeline, they were very, very clinical to begin with, but actually what transpires is a morbid flirtation between these two caricatures of themselves. And again, there was a turning point in the emails when she refers to herself as the devil in the red dress. She's playing out this role, a caricature of herself. I think in terms of this fantasy becoming a reality, you can visibly see from the emails that she starts to become uneasy with the idea of actually her husband being murdered.
We executed a search warrant at Isan's house and seized his computers, and that's when we were able to gather evidence of the plot in Ireland to, murder the family there.
Were his computer files encrypted? Were there any barriers to accessing his material other than the search warrant?
It wasn't like I could just plug it in and start looking. There's a process that we go through to mirror the computers, and the computer experts put in a format, but I'm the one that sits there all day. I took a week and went through the computers, and most of what I found was for the Irish case, not so much my case.
Eid arrived in Limerick with Teresa Ingle at the end of September 2006 and set up base camp here at the 2 Mile Inn. Before he could carry out the hit, though, he had one more job to do. Sharon Collins had made a fatal mistake, and that she had used one of the laptops at PJ Howard's office when initially contacting Eid. That laptop could incriminate them both.
Sharon, she wrote long emails with so much detail. It was so easy, really, to trace right back to her. She sent him emails telling him where she was going to hide the keys, the combination to the security system that only could have been written by her. And I think she'd sign her name maybe by her initials or something. And she thought that was cryptic enough.
It's locked. I got one, another one. We need those, we take those. Oh, let me just see that. I think that's it. Wait, look. Okay. All right. Okay, go.
It appeared that Sharon Collins gave a great deal of thought to how she wanted PJ Howard to die.
Sharon Collins was afraid that if PJ Howard died in suspicious circumstances within a sort of a tight time frame of his sons having died, that it would be too suspicious. So she wanted the boys poisoned, and ricin is a difficult substance to find in terms of analysing death. So that was the plan for them. But for PJ, she wanted him pushed off the balcony in an apparent suicide on learning of the deaths of his sons. So she had spent quite a lot of time thinking up this plot. It was almost a fictional plot.
You could just divorce him, forget about the money, and let both boys live.
I do feel bad about the others. But I've thought long and hard, and it's necessary, or else there's no advantage to getting rid of my husband. Other than never having to look at his miserable face again. I must make sure that I'm okay financially.
With the laptop now secure, Eid tried to contact Collins.
No answer.
He expected her to supply him with the remaining sum of money to complete the hit. But when he failed to get a hold of Collins, he decided to resort to an old trick.
Do you think Eid would ever have fulfilled his role as a hitman, or is he just a scam artist?
In my opinion, yes. And again, it's how he presents himself in the emails. He's spending far more time playing this role than actually getting down to business. The specifics were left very shady for a very long time in the correspondence, which shows there was no sense of urgency for him to actually commit the crime. It was more the ego boost he was receiving from Sharon.
Why do you think he visits Ireland? He could simply have taken the 15,000 euros and disappeared.
He probably did some research into the country itself, and I suppose in terms of how Ireland is perceived abroad, we're seen as a happy small nation, relatively safe. The crime levels are relatively low in comparison to other places, so he may well have thought, you know, I'm going to go and I'm going to see how far I can go with this in terms of what I'd be able to get away with.
Where is she?
Egyptian croupier and extortionist Essam Eid had come to Ireland supposedly to carry out 3 murders on behalf of Ennis homemaker Sharon Collins. However, when he couldn't contact her, he tried another trick to get hold of the money he thought he was owed.
Hello, Anthony. You was breaking, yes? There is a contract on your life for your brother and father for 130,000 euro. Now, you seem like nice guys. Maybe for 100,000, the contract goes away. I'll contact you tomorrow. We talk.
I presume Essam Eid was such a fantasist that he believed that he was so dangerous and so frightening and so intimidating that people would cough up. Issa definitely believed that he was some high-grade Italian mobster, that he had morphed into Tony Luciano. Like, to think that he could knock on the door of two Irish men and tell them he was going to kill them unless they paid him not to, and that they wouldn't call the police, suggests complete, I don't know, psychopath, narcissist, take your pick.
Eid had arranged for Teresa Engel to meet Robert at the Queen's Hotel in Ennis. What he didn't know was that Robert had gone to the police. The authorities had set up a clever sting to catch the hitman, Tony Luciano.
Robert Howard?
Yes.
I'm sorry, there's been a mistake.
Eid and Engel were arrested and charged with burglary and extortion.
No. I took it.
When Eid was brought into custody, the Gardaí had no idea that the pair had been involved in a murky plot to kill.
When I checked international travel records and saw that he had a reservation to Ireland and didn't come back, I said, okay, something happened. He went to Ireland, and I called over to our office in London that covers Ireland, and they were able to determine that he got arrested while in Ireland, which is exactly what I suspected had happened.
And he got arrested for burglary, but you obviously knew there was much more, most likely, to this.
Right, when I talked to the detective there, Detective Fahey, he told me that, yes, we did arrest him for demanding money with menace and burglary. We arrested his girlfriend too, but ended up releasing her. And I said, there's no way he went there for burglary. I'll tell you what I've got, and, let's compare notes here.
How important was the cooperation between the FBI and the Gardaí?
I gave them the mirrored computers, and they went through them again. They actually found a couple emails that I didn't. Really, the answers were all in Sharon's emails.
You broke into PJ Howard's office on Monday night.
No, sir. There's no reason to break into anybody's house or office.
And with the computer you had stolen, you then called to Robert Howard's house, demanding money from him in return for the cancellation of a contract on his life.
No, I never spoke to Robert Howard.
You then arranged to meet Robert Howard at the Queen's Hotel on the 27th of September. You were arrested directly across from that hotel.
Yesterday was your lucky day. Maybe he know I come there to that area there and somebody track me down. My wife, she have coffee in the hotel.
Do you honestly believe they're going to fall for this?
You're lying.
No, I'm not lying. I don't know how to explain it to you. I brought up different to you. Where I live, if you steal money from anyone, even a penny, it's like poison in my kid's mouth. I come here with my wife for good. Why I bother with an asshole like that? Sorry for my language.
Sam, they know.
The police quickly realised that there is very little evidence to justify holding onto Teresa Engel and release her, allowing her to return to the US. How did you arrest Teresa Engel when she returned from Ireland?
By the time I had checked and even knew who she was, she had already returned. It was days earlier. And so we went to Issam Eid's house where Teresa Engel lived with him and his wife and his daughter. And the wife told us that, yes, she did return, and but she's not here anymore. And she did tell the wife when she got back, we went to Ireland to kill some people, but we got arrested, and we turned it into an extortion, and I'm out of here, really. And she headed back to Ohio to her husband. Agents there arrested her. And then she was sent back to L.A. to face the charges, and that's when I met her when she got to L.A.
How did you find out about the ricin?
Issam Eid had asked the woman that hired him in Pennsylvania to pay him via PayPal. So when I pulled his PayPal records, I saw that he had bought a castor bean plant and castor bean seeds. So my first impression was ricin, but I had no evidence of that until later. Teresa Engel told us we got a recipe off the internet and we put it in his contact lens case. And I said, where would that ricin be now? And her answer was, well, it was in his contact lens case in his toiletry bag, and he got arrested, and who knows?
Mr. Reed, can you come with us, please? Where's your contact lens case?
It's in my wash bag. Why you want it?
We need to lock down this landing. Put him in a secure room. Suddenly, what appeared to be an investigation into extortion took a dark turn with the discovery of ricin here in Limerick Prison. The Gardaí now had what they believed to be a potential murder weapon. But could PJ Howard really be the target of a contract killer? The Gardaí now turned their attentions onto PJ Howard's long-term partner, Sharon Collins. Could she be lying eyes?
One of PJ Howard's sons had his computer stolen from the business by S01E06. And they were never able to recover it, and they wanted to know where that computer is because they thought that's the computer Sharon used to communicate. And so Teresa Engel told us, well, we went and hid it in the woods behind our hotel, and it might still be there. And they went and looked, and that woods was now like a parking lot. And they talked to the maintenance man at the hotel. He said, yeah, I did find a computer back there in the field, and it's plugged in the wall right now. It works just fine. So they were able to take that computer, and actually they recovered some things from it that were helpful for them.
Miss Collins.
I don't know why you're keeping me here.
We have to ask you a few questions as part of our ongoing investigations.
You should be looking for Maria Marconi, not harassing me.
In interview, Collins claimed that she'd been blackmailed by a woman called Maria Marconi because of a series of emails Collins had sent to Marconi concerning her relationship with PJ Howard.
So far, we've not been able to find any evidence of Miss Marconi. We have found some interesting material on the laptop at the house you share with PJ Howard. Why did you send money to Las Vegas?
I was being blackmailed. I thought the money would put an end to it.
What did you hear from the Gardaí when they discovered the complexity of this case?
The Gardaí in Ennis were completely taken aback. The initial investigation was a simple break-in. Then, when the Gardaí used their expertise from Dublin, when they were drafted in to look at the email correspondence, they really could not believe it. When their investigation took on an international dimension, and when they liaised with the FBI, that was really when everything started coming together. And even right up to the case going ahead in court, Gardaí really were completely shocked by the level of detail.
When the FBI raided your house in Las Vegas, they found several objects, including your address book. How could a phone number for Sharon Collins, County Clare, end up in the address book of S01E06 in Las Vegas?
I have no clue.
There's nearly 70 calls to Sharon Collins from your landline and your mobile. Can you explain that?
I have no comment. I never speak with the woman at all.
The email accounts S01E06@yahoo.com and hire_hitman@yahoo.com were accessed from the same computer less than 1 minute apart. That tells me that you are Hire Hitman.
It is not me. Maybe I'm not there.
S01E, Tony Luciano, and Hitman for Hire are all one and the same person. Can you accept that? Is that logical?
Well, somebody used it, so it seemed logical.
He's got you now, Sam.
The Lying Eyes trial began on May 22nd, 2008. The case proved to be one of the most remarkable in Irish criminal history and generated massive media interest here and abroad. Such was the demand for tickets that the case had to be moved from here in Ennis to the Central Criminal Court in Dublin. Now, the case centred on two key issues. Could the state prove that Sharon Collins was Lying Eyes 98 and that in concert with S01E06, she conspired to murder PJ Howard and his two sons?
When Sharon Collins appeared in court initially in Kilkee in West Clare, she'd been arrested at PJ Howard's home earlier that morning, and she looked pale and shaken. She looked like somebody who was in shock, and I remember seeing tears streaming down her face, and it was all beginning to hit her. It was all beginning to unravel.
To understand more about Eid, David is going to meet the one man who got to know him in Ireland, his solicitor, John Casey.
John, how did you first become involved in the case?
S01E had been before the court, I think, on one or maybe two occasions. He was remanded at the time to Limerick Prison in custody, and at the time it was purely extortion, in that he had been charged in relation to demanding monies. The investigation went on and they got new evidence, and then it became a conspiracy.
Were you excited to take on this particular case?
I suppose initially I didn't realise it was going to become the case it became. There was an amount of law in it, but you had it came from Las Vegas to Spain to Ennis. You had FBI, you had scientists.
Earlier, Los Angeles FBI agent Ingrid Sotelo said she came across what she thought was ricin poison in the garage of S01E's Las Vegas home and reported it to the FBI authorities in the city.
American woman Teresa Engel allegedly took part in an elaborate murder plot. Engel told the court that she met alleged hitman S01E in a casino in Detroit, Michigan, and they later moved to Las Vegas, where they married and lived with Eid's first wife, Lisa. She claims that 52-year-old Eid was contacted through the website Hitman for Hire by County Clare woman Sharon Collins. Ms Collins and Eid are on trial for conspiracy to murder Ennis businessman PJ Howard and his sons Robert and Niall in 2006. Both S01E and Sharon Collins deny conspiracy to murder.
Journalist John Cook covered the Lying Eyes trial.
What did people make of her alternative theories, the claim that she was set up?
She talked about an elaborate setup that is cyberspace, that somewhere the truth was caught in cyberspace.
Now, she tried to implicate others in this elaborate setup.
She was telling us that this woman, Maria Marconi, was one of the people who might have set her up. This was this person who she said she'd been in contact with at length through emails, telling her lots of details about her life, including her relationships. And she said the reason for this contact was that this character, in this bizarre plot, Maria Marconi, was teaching her how to write a novel because she'd like to become a writer herself, Sharon Collins. She talked about extensive contact between the two, of meeting up, I believe, as well, but no one ever found any trace of this character. And in a case that was described as a cheap thriller in court, it really seemed like Maria Marconi was one of the fictional characters and maybe only a product of Sharon Collins' imagination. And I think people were really starting to doubt her when they heard of things like this.
What was your plan for S01E's defence?
The trial started in May, didn't finish until July, so everything was contested. We were under instructions to fight everything.
Was one of the key moments in the trial when the judge allowed the ricin evidence to be presented in court?
The jury heard that there was ricin there, it was a poison, there was a conspiracy charge against my client, so it probably didn't help.
It's kind of Hollywood-esque, isn't it? There are incredible elements to this story. Spain, Las Vegas, Egypt, Tony Luciano. I mean, it's quite an extraordinary case.
Well, it was. I mean, at the conclusion of the case, I would certainly say that I would have no doubt but that the Irish Gardaí are well up to match with the FBI. I have no doubt whatsoever about that.
And what was the significance of Lying Eyes, and how did that email address, make it into the trial?
The email address was Lying Eyes 98, 1998 being the year we were told that she and PJ had got together and moved in together. Lying Eyes, a very famous Eagles song where there ain't no way to hide your lying eyes, and I don't know the words, but it talks about a young woman cheating on her older partner or husband, I believe, behind his back.
She's alleged to have sent the hitman a deposit of €15,000. The prosecution claimed this is how Sharon Collins was caught red-handed. The FedEx tracking number for the money was accessed by Lying Eyes on the computers in Miss Collins' home and in the office. But Sharon Collins denies she was Lying Eyes.
then Lying Eyes had logged on looking up various details about this hitman for hire again, and then minutes later Sharon Collins had logged back onto the same computer to check this money transfer and whether it had gone through. So Sharon Collins, it seemed, and Lying Eyes were the same person if they were both logging onto this computer within minutes.
How did PJ Howard react to the case?
Nobody really knew what to expect. Was he going to dish the dirt? Was he going to stand by her, or was he just going to give straight evidence? So his evidence was pretty much straightforward. It was quite short. It was a Friday afternoon in the Four Courts.
By the incredible claims, PJ Howard appeared to stand by Ms Collins before and during the trial. It emerged that he had written to the Director of Public Prosecution saying, "I feel myself very strongly that she is being accused in the wrong."
As he left the witness box, he walked down past Sharon Collins and planted a kiss on her lips. And everybody was absolutely stunned because, again, people had felt that once she was in the dock, once charges had been brought, that this was it. Surely he was going to wash his hands off her, but he stood by her.
PJ Howard leaving court today after describing Sharon Collins as one of the nicest people one could have the fortune to know. The Ennis businessman pleaded for Sharon Collins not to be jailed, despite her conviction for hiring a hitman to kill him and his two sons. Mr. Howard said, "I will not give up on Sharon and would have no hesitation in living with her again."
Alan, you're a great observer of Irish criminal trials. Can you think of a more dramatic intervention in a trial of P.J. Howard kissing Sharon Collins?
He did it for multiple reasons. One of them could just be very simple fact that he loved the woman. And it might have been his demonstration to the judge to reinforce his plea for leniency. That, look, this is a woman, this is the woman that I love. No matter what has been alleged against her, I don't accept it. And by this kiss, I'm demonstrating to you that regardless, when she finishes whatever sentence you might be inclined to give her, I'll be waiting for her. It could have been as simple as that. On the other hand, if you were a cynic, and I'm not suggesting that I am or he was, but Judas also kissed Jesus. So, you know, maybe the cynics amongst the jury might have taken that approach.
There she goes.
In the early history of criminology, while they recognised that female criminals were quite a rarity, it was always believed that where women deviated from the ideal of femininity, that those female criminals would be more devious and dangerous than their male counterparts. And in the world of Sharon Collins, you can easily see people make that case. But despite the plot lines and twists and turns to her story, her case bears many of the hallmarks of most contract killings, and that is that it was based on the breakdown of a relationship. So despite the Hollywood hype, the ingredients to her crime were very basic. And you have to remember, it all started when she Googled hitmen for hire.
So, Sharon Collins, the case of lying eyes is simply staggering. The scale of her ambition to kill, to effectively be a family annihilator by proxy.
And even to this day, you know, she still claims that she was set up, maintaining the fiction that Maria Marconi is somehow responsible for commissioning the hit. Seems to me to underscore that this is one fantasist finding another fantasist.
This is Carry On Hitman if you were going to give this movie a title. It was preposterous.
So would you agree that with S01E06 we're talking about a dilettante hitman?
I think he's one of the perfect models of that category.
Bring a nigga from the 9-1, switch that over, that's the young blonde. I was at the West Coast, now I'm in the East Coast. Shawty wanna